Party peoples of the interwebs, my summary of day 3 of the congressional hearings into the attempted assassination of President Donald Trump. Viva Frei, former Montreal litigator turned current Florida rumbler, and I spent the better part of the week, as I'm sure most of you did, listening to these congressional hearings into the failed assassination, the attempted assassination of President Donald Trump. It is mind-blowing. On Monday, we had the former, now resigned Director of Secret Service, Kim Cheadle, answering questions, but not answering any questions, and in not answering any questions, answering a lot of questions. It was pure arrogance, pomposity, haughtiness, and not in the good way. It was an act of provocation for Kim Cheadle to get up there and deal with the attempted assassination of President Donald Trump in such a nonchalant, disrespectful, and almost lackadaisical way the day after her disastrous congressional testimony. She resigned as Director of Secret Service.
You stated earlier, Secret Service is not political. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Would you say leaking your opening statement to Punchbowl News, Politico's Playbook, and Washington Post several hours before you sent it to this committee as being political? Yes or no?
I have no idea how my statement got out.
Well, that's bullshit.
We then had the heads of the state police and the ESU, the Emergency Specialty Unit, whatever. We had the heads of the state police testify on Tuesday, and they were basically saying, look, that was up to Secret Service. We were not the ones who were supposed to be in charge of that. We relayed the information to Secret Service, and they somehow, with all of this information, let Donald Trump on that stage, knowing that there was a suspicious person who turned into a threat in the crowd, knowing that people saw him on the roof minutes before Donald Trump took the stage, and nonetheless, Secret Service let Donald Trump take that stage. They let him take that stage for a very specific and sinister reason. And then on day 3, they had the director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, testify. And I've got to tell you, I listened to it. Christopher Wray answered some questions, provided some information. He looked like an arrogant, pompous prick as well. They all do. They answer questions and they skirt around the answers and they say, thank you for the question. I'll need to get back to you on that. I want to make sure that I give you all of the accurate information. I don't want to say anything wrong. But if I had a nickel for every time they said, I appreciate the question, I have at least a few bucks. It's nauseating. I hate listening to all of them. But one thing that was abundantly clear from the Christopher Wray testimony, the Democrats are the absolute worst people on earth. They are disgusting beyond words, hypocrites of the highest order. And Republicans, they ask good questions, but then they just go ahead and write strongly worded letters and don't do anything else. Christopher Wray's testimony can basically be summarized as, I don't really want to answer any questions incorrectly, so I'm going to answer them in the most haphazard, fence-sitting way. One thing that's interesting is that Christopher Wray did confirm that 8 shell casings were found on the roof where the alleged shooter was found dead after the shooting, but we'll get to that in a second. I've just clipped some of the highlights. 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans, and I'm just going to give you my commentary on these highlights because I think the entire day can be summarized in these clips from the 5 hours of testimony. I don't know what this guy's name is. It doesn't really matter. But one thing is abundantly and disgustingly clear. The Democrats never let a good crisis go to waste. In the wake of the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, the Democrats try to turn this into something of an ensuring that every vote counts. And you hear in this question, what are you doing to ensure that every voter can safely and confidently cast a ballot this year? This is coming from the very same party that just disenfranchised 14 million primary voters out of their vote. Now, all of a sudden, they're concerned about voter integrity and voter disenfranchisement.
What is the FBI doing in consultation with other law enforcement to ensure every eligible voter can safely and confidently cast a ballot this year?
It's so disgustingly cynical and hypocritical. The party that just ran Joe Biden, knowing that he was not good enough to do another 4 years, selling him as though he's good enough for another 4 years. They got their primary voters to go out and vote for Joe Biden. Then he withdraws and anoints Kamala Harris, who nobody voted for, thus disenfranchising 14 million primary voters out of their primary votes. And now they come out all high and mighty virtuous saying, what can we do this year to ensure that everyone can confidently cast a ballot when we just stole people's votes, stole their money too, not for nothing, but they're so concerned about not disenfranchising voters, ensuring that they can cast their ballot with confidence after stealing 14 million votes. All right, I've said enough about that. Moving on to the most disgusting man on earth, tied with the other most disgusting man on earth who comes in at the 3rd clip here, but let's start with Jerry Nadler.
This assassination attempt, as horrific as it is, should surprise no one. And you would think a political party that almost lost their presidential candidate through an act of political violence would have something to say about the way their leaders keep talking about the next election. Donald Trump has warned there will be a, quote, bloodbath if he loses. Republican Ohio State Senator George Lang said just last week at a rally for J.D. Vance that he is, quote, afraid that civil war might be necessary if Republicans lose the November election. President of the right-wing think tank and Project 2025 leader, the Heritage Foundation, Kevin Roberts, said on Stephen Bannon's podcast, quote, we are in the process of the second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be, close quote. Republican former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin said in August of last year of Trump's indictments, do you want us to be in civil war? Because that's what's going to happen. We're not going to keep putting up with this. We do need to rise up and take our country back, close quote. I could go on, but it's more and more of the same. And I hear nothing from the other side of the aisle in this room about these statements. Do you support a bloodbath if you don't get the election outcome you want? Do you justify violence if the left does not agree with you? And what exactly has preoccupied this Republican majority while their allies threaten violence to their political enemies, real and imagined?
Listen carefully to what Jerry Nadler just said. You would think that a party that nearly lost their leader would think about the way they talk about politics, and then he goes to repeat the lie, the outright fabricated lie of Trump talking about a bloodbath if he loses the election. Set aside the fact that he repeats the lie not once but twice. He seems to suggest that that comment came after the attempted assassination.
And you would think a political party that almost lost their presidential candidate through an act of political violence would have something to say about the way their leaders keep talking about the next election. Donald Trump has warned there will be a, quote, bloodbath if he loses.
We're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole, that's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it. But they're not going to sell those cars. They're building massive factories.
Jerry Nadler says, you think the party that nearly lost their leader would think about the way they're talking, and then refers to something that Trump said before the attempted assassination, and he refers to something that is an outright godforsaken lie. Jerry Nadler, you are the most disgusting person on earth, tied for first with Representative Adam Schiff.
Let me start with a threshold question I'm curious about. When I applied to be an assistant U.S. attorney, I had to go through a background check. Do candidates for the FBI have to go through background checks?
Yes.
Would someone with dozens of felony convictions survive a background check for the Bureau?
No.
So they would never be hired by the Bureau?
No.
Well, clearly the Bureau has, you don't have to comment on this, I know you won't, but clearly the Bureau has higher standards for their hiring than one of America's great political parties.
And here you have Rep. Adam Schiff, who is as ugly on the outside as he is on the inside. He really is a truly repulsive human being, taking the opportunity of the attempted assassination on Donald Trump. Remember, they tried to frame him for the Russiagate hoax. They tried to impeach him not once but twice. They then prosecuted him. They then tried to bankrupt him. They then tried to take him off the ballot. And when all of that failed, they tried to kill him. And now you got that disgusting Schifferbrains, Adam Schiff, getting up there and saying, at the FBI, you wouldn't be able to hire someone who's been convicted of multiple felonies, because out of the lawfare that they got a bogus conviction on bogus felonies in that corrupt state of New York. And that awful scoundrel of an excuse for a human being, Adam Schiff, exploits of the attempted assassination on Donald Trump and the investigation into that to bring this up as some sort of political gotcha. Oh, the FBI wouldn't hire someone with convictions for felonies. Well, I guess the GOP doesn't have the same standard. You're an awful, awful person, Adam Schiff, and I hope you know that. And then we get into the strongly worded letters of the Republicans, but at the very least, they flesh out some relevant information.
We, for some time, and I in particular for some time, have been calling out the efforts by the Iranian government to attempt to retaliate for the killing of Soleimani by going after current or former prominent U.S. officials, and we've even had an indictment against it. And I think that we need to recognize the brazenness of the Iranian regime, including right here in the United States. And I expect that we're going to see more of it, and I expect there'll be more coming on that. I'm not aware of any threat information related to protectees that wasn't, passed in a timely way, but I can't really get into specifics here.
It's minority's time here, but I just felt that was a question the committee needed to understand, and it sounds like you've known that for a long time, and that information was conveyed to the Secret Service?
Any information related to threats against the former president, which again, as we've sort of talked about, is happens all too often, is something that we have a whole process we routinely share with Secret Service at a number of levels in a timely way, and to my knowledge, that has consistently been followed.
Here you have Representative Jim Jordan highlighting a very, very relevant element of this attempted assassination plot, in that the Secret Service, FBI, knew of an alleged Iranian threat to assassinate Donald Trump for him having assassinated the Soleimani guy. They knew that there was an Iranian threat, allegedly, and yet somehow Secret Service denied Trump requests for additional Secret Service protection, even after they knew of the alleged Iranian threat. More simply put, it seems that the Secret Service denied Trump requests for additional protection even after they knew of the alleged Iranian threats against Donald Trump's life, and they were basically totally lacking in any meaningful security at this Butler rally in Pennsylvania. Notwithstanding the Iranian threat, they let this 20-year-old kid come up, climb on a roof with a gun, get off 8 or 9 shots before he was finally taken out after having been notified of the person who was suspicious, walking around with a rangefinder, climbing on a roof. People in the crowd were shouting to the police minutes before Trump took the stage. You could have sent a passenger pigeon faster from the roof of that building to Trump on stage to tell him to get into a safe spot. Nonetheless, notwithstanding all of that, the Iranian threat, turning down Trump's request for additional Secret Service protection. They didn't give him additional stuff. They didn't even have a drone in the sky, and they let him take the stage when they knew there was a threat in the crowd. You tell me that this was not a Lee hop or a me hop, a let it happen on purpose or a made it happen on purpose. You tell me it wasn't that, and I will tell you, you are not paying attention. Then we get to Representative Tiffany, whose name I only know because I can read his nameplate there, and he's asking the FBI about alleged political bias within the FBI. You know, you had your Peter Strzok once upon a time talking about an insurance policy against Donald Trump. You had your attorney, Kevin Kleinsmith, falsifying evidence that they submitted to a secret FISA court so they could spy on Carter Page to then spy on Donald Trump. That FBI, the allegedly corrupt partisan FBI, and Tiffany is bringing up current examples of bias within the FBI. There were some FBI agents, or at least one in particular, who was reprimanded for comments he made in the wake of the failed assassination attempt on Donald Trump. And Tiffany here is asking about a certain form, a certain questionnaire for an interview process, which is intended to do nothing less than flesh out or flush out potential Trump supporters from the FBI so that you can have a totally corrupt, totally partisan institution that is now going to investigate its own failings into how Donald Trump was almost assassinated live on TV.
Who improved what is termed the Trump questionnaire within the FBI that was done by SIIS? Dina Perkins, Jeffrey Ventry were behind it. Who was responsible for that? And did you know that there was a Trump questionnaire out there?
So the document you're asking about is an interview outline that we only recently learned about, and in my view is completely inappropriate. I asked my team to get to the bottom of what happened and to ensure that doesn't happen again, and I've learned that it's not an FBI form, that its use was isolated, that it was created not by an FBI employee, but by an outside contractor, and that individual is no longer affiliated with the FBI. But we are sending what we have found to the Office of Inspector General, and we'll cooperate, of course, with anything they find.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just close with this. We keep hearing about these isolated examples, whether it's Richmond Catholics, this instance. When is it, isn't it a pattern? I yield back.
And then finally, you have Representative Roy, whose name I also only know because I can read his name tag, talking about the recent FBI agents who lamented the fact that Trump was not killed, and Representative Christopher Wray, who says these are only a couple of incidents here and there. It's not anything that's representative of the culture within the FBI. Well, that guy is being reprimanded for having lamented in the fact that the guy did not succeed in killing Donald Trump, apparently from what I understand of the communication.
In 2016 and 2015, top FBI officials infamously texted about, quote, their insurance policy to make sure Trump was never elected or inaugurated as president. Have any FBI agents texted, emailed, or expressed disappointment that Trump survived the assassination attempt or otherwise editorialized about the assassination attempt?
I don't know about any agents. There have been at least 2 instances, I think, or 1 instance of an individual who posted something that I consider outrageous and totally inappropriate and unacceptable. And that individual has been referred to our inspection division, which is the arm, our sort of internal affairs investigatory arm that does the disciplinary process.
Okay. Will you report back to this committee any other incidents?
I'll do my best to share information with you.
So that's it. That's the summary of day 3 of the congressional hearings. Whether anything comes of this, we do not know. I am predicting that something will come of this. Whistleblowers will continue to come out and show that this was not an accident. This was not a question of lacking resources. This was a let it happen on purpose or made it happen on purpose. I have no doubt that the individual was known to the FBI. In fact, just to throw in one more highlight, it's Rep. Matt Gaetz who asks Christopher Wray if the individual Crooks, the alleged assassin, was known to the FBI, and just listen to Christopher Wray's evasive answer to this very direct question.
Was the shooter on the FBI's radar in any way prior to the assassination attempt?
We did not have any information about the shooter. He was not in our holdings before the shooting.
No communication in any chat rooms, no CIs or confidential human sources have any interaction with
No, we've run a thorough search for the subject through all of our holdings, and he was not in them anywhere.
Were there any FBI agents or informants present at the Trump rally in Butler?
Not to my knowledge.
Was the shooter known to the FBI, yes or no? What I can tell you is that he wasn't in the FBI holdings. I didn't ask if he was in the FBI holdings. If you're going to use a patsy to carry out an assassination attempt, I would presume he would not be in the FBI holdings, whatever that means. Was he known to the FBI, yes or no? And we did not get an answer to that question. The old joke is that if you contact the FBI and you say, I know this crazy person who seems to be making threats against Donald Trump, they're not going to go arrest that guy. They're going to go recruit that guy. Was this guy known to the FBI? Christopher Wray cannot answer that question. I presume because he does not want to lie under oath. Not in the FBI holdings is not an answer to the question. So that's it. This was clearly and undeniably a let it happen on purpose at best and a made it happen on purpose at worst. And I strongly suspect that this person was known to the FBI. We will find that out sooner than later. But right now, whistleblowers are coming out, but we need the strength and the courage of these whistleblowers to come out in greater numbers and tell us what happened, provide the documentation, provide the information so that the responsible people can not only resign, but can be prosecuted and jailed for what they tried to do. They tried to start a World War III by killing Donald Trump live on TV, and but for the grace of God, a slight tilt of the head. We are living in an alternate universe where instead of being on the road to World War III, we might be on the road to a shift in the zeitgeist, world peace, and my goodness, exposing the Democrat Party for what it is, exposing the deep state for what it is, and exposing these corrupt institutions for what they are. May that happen sooner than later. If you like what I do, you know what to do. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, drop a comment in the comment section below because it feeds the algorithm. Be sure to follow me on Rumble, Viva Frei, Twitter, The Viva Frei, and vivabarneslaw.locals.com for the best above average community out there. But most importantly, exercise, eat healthy, sunlight, talk to people in real life, and now you know your vlog. Peace out, peeps. Booyah!
Ayes are 213 and the nays are 209. With 6 answering present, the resolution adopted. Without objection, the motion to consider is laid on the table. House will be in order.
So you've got the Democrats yelling shame at the Speaker of the House for the censure of Adam Schiff. We gotta vote these people out. I mean, they are like clowns.